Fresh off the podium, Kirk Ferentz met with the media, and as always, there's plenty to unpack. Injury updates, depth chart tweaks, and his thoughts heading in to our final weekend without Iowa football today. Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked on Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked on Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked on Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast coming to you each and every weekday as we count down to kickoff. My name is Trent Condon. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa. You can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network as I broadcast each weekday from noon till 2, talking the world of sports and plenty of Hawkeyes. You can hear me in Des Moines, Sioux City, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and the Quad Cities, and everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Just search Miller and Condon, and we will pop up there. Today's episode of Locked on Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. It is the final weekend without Iowa football for the foreseeable future. Yes, there'll be bye weeks, but you know where we're getting. But it is a big weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about week 0 and what maybe you should be looking for with Iowa State facing off against Kansas State. And of course, the rivalry matchup with the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones just a couple weeks away. We will talk about that a little bit later on. Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. He is going to join us a little bit later on. We will get the latest from Tom Kakert on the injury front, what's happening in Iowa football. But we begin today with a peek back to yesterday. Kirk Ferentz met with the media yesterday over in Iowa City in a kind of impromptu press conference. Wasn't scheduled until the day before. That one popped out, and just a final look at this football team coming into the year. And a couple of takeaways from that, starting with something that can be delicate to talk about if you're somebody that believes in voodoo, believes in magic, believes in good or bad vibes. Maybe close your ears for a moment. This team's healthy. And as Kirk talked about this squad, that is something that definitely jumps up. You know, we've talked about a couple of the major injuries to players. Kamari Bolton, the anticipated starting running back, as he's been out for a number of weeks during camp. Same with one of the backups to him and Terrell Washington Jr., TJ Hall back in practice. Getting those guys back out there is incredibly important. And outside of one guy, Will Nolan, coming off surgery, everything looks good. Now we'll see. There's still more practice in front of them. They still got game week prep, obviously, happening next week, and it's Iowa football. We know that they practice sometimes a little bit harder than other places, but the health of this squad is incredibly important and something to keep an eye on. And taking that a step further, it's so much more important because of this new era of college football that we're in. You know, the depth that was there for so many years is not the case anymore, just in terms of sheer volume. There's not the same number of guys on the roster, and because of that, having a healthy season is even more important than it's been in the past, where it's always important. And at a program like Iowa, that's always going to be an important piece. But definitely hearing again from Kirk yesterday, you can tell he has questions about this team, as we all do, but I really think he likes the makeup of this group. I think that he is enjoying this squad, what they are and what they have a chance to be. It's going to take some breaks. It's going to take some good fortune. It's going to take about a lot of the things that we talk about that have to happen in the course of a year. But I think he likes this group and certainly where they are at this point in time. Couple of position group and a couple of notes on the offensive line. As we've talked about a lot here, Trevor Lauck, Jack Doetzler battling for that left tackle spot. We told you a week ago here on Locked on Hawkeyes, it looked like Trevor Lauck had about wrapped it up. And though that's not how Kirk Ferentz put it out yesterday, my takeaway is this. He talked a lot about Jack Doetzler and calling him maybe as improved as anybody on our team, not just in the offensive line room, as improved as anybody. In a way, I see this as a wink and a nod to a guy that they're going to need next year. You know, you don't want Jack Doetzler doing what we saw a year ago and jumping into the portal during the season. Not only do they need him for depth purposes, if something happens to a Trevor Lauck, and you definitely want him there, he's also likely going to be the heir apparent if Trevor Lauck sticks at left tackle, which I think he will. he very well becomes the front runner to be your starter next year. Jack Doetzler does at right tackle, taking over for Jennings Dunker. So I think that is a piece of it that we're seeing here, the good things that are coming in. Again, I think Lauck will be that guy at left tackle. There's going to be some growing pains. That's going to happen when you got a sophomore out there at left tackle, but I think that's what we're going to see. And as we've also talked about a lot, Bryce George doesn't look like it's going to happen, likely at left tackle unless injuries happen, but he's going to be a depth piece in the interior. And Kirk Ferentz brought up the Rusty Fifth, which I think is a really good comp. Veteran guy, Rusty Fifth came in from Miami of Ohio, and even making that jump from the MAC up to the Big Ten. We know that's a pretty big jump forward. It's even bigger what Bryce George is going through from the Division II level, even at the highest levels, moving into the Big Ten, and the interior just makes a whole lot more sense on that front. Speaking of week 0, as we'll talk a little bit later on about what to look for with Iowa State and Kansas State tomorrow, is the question came up to Kirk, what do you want to play games overseas? And very quickly, Kirk said no. In no uncertain words, he doesn't want to do it. Now, we know Kirk's affinity for a lot of the same, and though he's been willing to adapt, we know the struggles on the West Coast. Long road trips have not gone very well for Iowa outside of bowl games, and I was not surprised to see that. And, you go back, and I believe Kirk, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and I very well could be. I think Kirk was gone when Iowa went out there in the late 80s to Hawaii and got absolutely screwed. I think it was Jason Elam that hit the game winner as Iowa got absolutely robbed in that game. It was a preseason top 10 Iowa team and got robbed out there on the islands by the officials. But I believe Kirk was gone at that point. He did bring up, though, he took his main team out there, and it was very tired afterwards. You can anticipate Maine to Hawaii. That's a really long ways. And then a couple other things. One final note, I think the most important takeaway, at least for me, from Kirk Ferentz is talk about the quarterback play. And Mark Gronowski, who we've talked about a ton, just seeing Gronowski, him getting comfortable. We heard it was a slow start to camp. He's getting there, getting that confidence, getting more comfortable. You're going to need that. It goes without saying. If I was going to have a great year this year, Mark Gronowski has to be special. He has to be really good. And then the continued praise that is heaped on Hank Brown. And it led my mind to wander a little bit. And that's what you do from time to time. As if something happens to Mark Gronowski. He gets banged up, loses his helmet for a series, whatever it is. Just how comfortable they are in Hank Brown, because it feels like if Hank Brown has to go into the game for any reason, and he is the backup quarterback, he'll be the backup. For any reason, though, he has to go in the game. You get that feeling from Tim Lester, from Kirk Ferentz, from this staff, that they're going to be very comfortable with Hank Brown. That it's not like we've seen recently, where your starter has already got issues and your backup, the Hank Brown they believe can go in there right now, right away, and be an impact a type of player. Finally, position battle we've talked about a ton is cornerback and what's happening there. TJ Hall back, as we talked about the injuries, that is important. But Deshaun Lee, veterans, played a lot of football. He's going to be back there. Who else is going to be the guy? Jalen Watson, back healthy, as he was a little banged up early in camp. He's been back for a while now. He continues to ascend. I bring up when I brought up Jalen Watson to Kirk out in Vegas, and you could see in Kirk's eyes there was something there. He's a guy that he likes. And the question becomes, what about Shaheed Barrows and what Barrows is going to be able to do coming in from South Dakota? Maybe that growth is accelerating from Barrows because they're going to need it. And depth at the cornerback spot's going to be important because even with TJ Hall, we still have questions. Deshaun Lee, we have questions. Jalen Watson's still young. And that depth and having a number 4 guy in Barrows, I think is an important part of that one. Just a couple of the takeaways from Kirk Ferentz at his press conference yesterday. We'll go next to a guy that was there, Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. The latest Iowa football news with Tom's perspective. We'll do that as we continue. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Maybe you're going tried or true. You like the big favorites going into the MVP race. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Those guys are all there. Or you can search for that long shot. You can go even deeper into it. How about crowning your champion in August? You think you're going to see a Ravens Super Bowl finally? Like I seemingly bet on every single year, this could be the year and your chance to hit it. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
Tom Kakert joins the program on 3 Media, HawkeyeReport.com. Lots of ground to cover with you. Obviously, Kirk Ferentz met the media yesterday. I want to start with something that, and I'm anxious to hear how you see this, because I see it somewhat of a groundswell, and I don't mean to come across as anyone is pushing Kirk Ferentz on. I don't. I hope he stays until he's ready to go. But when the Pat Fitzgerald news broke yesterday, I've seen more Twitter, I've seen more feedback, I've seen more message board chatter about Fitzgerald and the possibilities of him being at some point the heir apparent to the head coach at the University of Iowa. Now, timelines may not match up. I'm not saying Ferentz is done after this year. I think Fitz wants to get back sooner rather than later. But have you noticed the buzz, the Fitzgerald replacing Kirk Ferentz buzz? And it seemingly, for the most part, is all positive.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I thought it was really interesting that, of course, Ryan Fitzgerald, Pat's son, is a walk-on this year for the Iowa football team playing quarterback. So you have that element that just stirs the pot even more. Because, and truth be told, I spied Fitz in the stands at Kinnick Stadium at Kids Day wearing an Iowa shirt. So
the plot thickens.
But I think he was there just. In fact, I talked to Ryan the day before at Media Day, and he said, "Yeah, he'll be there. He's just a supportive dad. It's nothing nefarious going on." So it's, I think now that things are settled, now Pat can start looking at what his next act is going to be. And I always just kind of envisioned he's probably going to have to start at like the MAC level or something if he wants to be a head coach. I didn't really envision him like, okay, here's the Big Ten job, Pat, get back to work. I didn't envision that. So, but, he got completely exonerated in this whole thing. I mean, and Northwestern had to come out and say, hey, basically we screwed up. We're sorry. The interesting thing I thought about was, Braun's on the hot seat this year. What if they just went back to fifth?
How about that?
Said hat in hand, and just they're opening up that new stadium next year, and you can just say, you know what, we screwed up. We shouldn't have ever let this happen. Welcome back, Fitz. And because at some point, aren't they going to have like a statue of Fitz as a coach or something outside of that stadium?
Yes, they
have to, right? And I mean, it just seems like a natural thing.
This does open. That's an interesting door, Tom, that just opened. That's very good.
And you just don't know his background now. Is he
bitter?
Yes, too emboldened that he's not going to do it. He would not do it, but that's what we don't know. Certainly an interesting conversation. Well, there was more to Kirk Ferentz yesterday, including, I think, a quote that I took one way, but I think some of the fan base maybe takes another. That's the left tackle position. One of the biggest topics that we've had all the way back to spring. Bryce George looks like he's going to be more of an inside guy making that transition from D2. Felt like Lauck almost had a lock on the position. And then he brings up Jack Doetzler, maybe having the best camp of anybody. So is this job actually close, or is this more, look, Jack Doetzler is likely going to be the right tackle next season after Jennings Dunker moves on. Let's keep Doetzler happy, but Lauck is the game. How do you read it?
That's kind of the way I read it. Was, Jack, we're making you. We're really happy with your play. We want you to stay around, so we're going to shower you with praise. That was what I kind of felt like when the two deeps came out in the spring and it had Jack Doetzler as the starter,
That's
I thought
right.
that was like more experience and what have you. They, so much of stuff that goes on today, and I'm not saying Iowa is doing this nor are they above it, because
they should be
everybody's doing this now, is listing guys on depth charts different. I mean, that's why Kirk didn't put out the depth chart this year, because he just doesn't want guys bailing.
Disgruntled,
because in the spring, if Doetzler sees like, oh well, Lauck's already passed me, he could just dive right in the portal. And part of this is just kind of this show that you have to put on for players now to keep them from entering the portal, and this is probably part of it.
I think it makes sense. Absolutely. What about the comment on Gronowski that he's been getting more comfortable? No, gaining more comfort, I think is how he put it. And I think, is he kind of, I guess, reaffirming some of the chatter that's been out there that he hadn't had, like every day didn't go perfectly, that there were some lows, there's some highs, there's some lows, a little bit of both. But when he said gaining more comfort, how did you take that?
Yeah, just that I think he's growing with the position and he's getting better. He admitted, I mean, after the Kids Day practice, he's been rusty. And I think then everybody kind of gets anxious and rightfully so. I mean, Iowa fans have been through it with the quarterback position the last 4 years, right? It's just been a carnival of not great. And every turn is just not good. So it's you understand why there's some scar tissue for Iowa fans when they see a guy come in and he's supposed to be great and then he struggles and you're like, oh, here we go again. And I think Gronowski's going to be fine. I really do. I wrote something this week. I'm like, hey, let's just give him a few weeks. And if at the end of the Indiana game, if you just can't stomach it anymore, then boy, then you probably have an alarm bell if he's really struggling after 4 games. But I think he's going to get out there and just and continue to grow as a quarterback.
So we get from Kirk yesterday, this is a very healthy team, and of course, knock on wood, but some of the guys we wonder about, TJ Hall, he's back out there practicing, Kamari Moulton, TJ Washington, those guys are back out there. Is it just kind of a fluky, hey, they made it through camp pretty good? Or do you think there's something more here with Raymond Braithwaite and what he's doing strength and conditioning wise? Because I can't remember a year quite like this, that they're this healthy before game number 1.
And that's legit too. I was talking to somebody earlier in the week about it and I did the program and they're like, can't believe how, and I was just like, this is going to be the kiss of death. They're going to just start, there's going to be guys dropping like flies against Albany. It's just how it's going to be. That's just the minute you bring that up, it's just inviting doom. But that's just my sixth sense of the way the world works sometimes, more than anything else. But they're really healthy, and now they got Kamari back doing some stuff. I'm really, really, really curious about what happens at running back in this first game. I think Omar Young's going to try to get a bunch of guys out there and say, okay, somebody go out and win this job, like Caleb Johnson did last year in the opener against Illinois State.
Yep. And not till the second half.
Yeah, because he was suspended.
Not until the second half.
And who is going to win it, Tom? If you had to bet.
That's well, who everybody the favorite right now is Nathan McNeil.
Yes.
I mean, he's
the freshman
right now.
Yeah,
the true freshman.
Yeah.
I kind of lean that way a little bit. I just think the kid is you just see it, and I use the term, whatever it is, he has it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's something about this dude that's just, he's different. And, but I just worry, like Kamari battling this hamstring thing. It's like LaShawn Williams last year, and we'll get to see LaShawn Williams play tomorrow afternoon or whatever it is against Fresno, down with Kansas. I mean, and LaShawn was out of there by October.
That's right.
He was out of the program, in the portal by October because Caleb Johnson just went out and won the job and was getting 25 carries a game, and there was no room for him anymore. And so he just said, you know what, I'm just gonna bounce, and ends up at after a brief stop at Memphis, I believe. Now he's at Kansas.
Yeah, that was a weird one too. And speaking of Memphis, you want to have fun, Tom. I brought this up to Ken a week or so ago. Take a look at Memphis's two deep over at Our Lads. They have something like 40 transfers into that program. It is all yellow. That's what transfers are listed down there. It's the most incredible thing you'll take a look at. Speaking of the Tigers, hey, I got one thing at the wide receiver position for you. So it really does feel like Seth Anderson is finally happening. Speaking of health, he's healthy.
Yeah.
We know Vanderzee looked very good as a freshman. He takes a step forward. Gil got hurt. Solid, dependable, really, really good. But then after that, you got all these candidates. So if you had to make your prediction, who's going to be number 4 and 5? Leave those top 3 guys to the side. Give me number 4 and number 5 out of that deep group of 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, I wrote about that. Just kind of one final look at the fall camp for this morning and the receivers, and boy, I kind of wonder if Weegen's name has come up too much for me to ignore it.
Okay,
is kind of just talking to people around the program, talking to Tim Lester this summer, and he just kept bringing up Weegen, and I'm like, okay, they're going to do something with Weege this year, and after that, boy, I would guess Phillips, probably, because you just don't. They're going to give him a shot, and you know he started he was out there with the ones for the kids' day practice, so maybe that's an indication of what they think of him. And he's one of the guys that went on that trip too. But you got to throw KJ Parker in there too. KJ Parker's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. So they've really got like 6 guys, and then after that, that's kind of where I concluded is you can probably shuttle in 6 guys and give them significant reps. But then if you're Dayton Howard or Jared Bowie, you're going to be scraps. You know, you're kind of out of the mix a little bit. So, but yeah, Vanderzee's had a really good camp, and Anderson has been terrific. And just, you know, now Iowa fans, knock on wood that Seth Anderson stays healthy.
Yeah, because he hasn't been able to. I want to go back to Nathan McMillan because that kind of strikes me a little bit. If you
McNeil,
McNeil, beg your pardon. Yeah, not McMillan, Nathan McNeil. What was his recruitment like, Tom? Who was after him? How did Iowa get him? Or was he one of those guys that somehow nobody was aware of that just kind of fell into their lap? Help me out with McNeil.
There's a little bit of that to it. Was, in fact, in October of last year, they had kind of, quote, air quotes, offered him, but they didn't bring him up on an official until later. And he and his dad came up for a visit just on their own dime, just to kind of check it out. And it was Liddell Betts, a guy that, you know, he was recruiting Florida and really liked him and thought that the kid would be a good fit. But I don't think anybody thought he would be as good as he's been. And he's a natural. I mean, it's Akram Wadley with more size. I mean, Kirk's brought it up. He's like, he's 200 pounds, you know, because that was Kirk's gripe with Akram for a lot of his career. Was he was 175 most of the time, and just I wish he'd put on some weight and everything.
Yep.
And now, you know, this kid's, you know, he's a solid 200 pounds, and he glides. He just moves differently than other backs, and yeah, he was, I think it was like Florida Atlantic, some of those schools. I mean, really? It wasn't like he had a who's who of schools.
Yeah, if memory serves, it was down to Rhode Island, Arkansas State, and then he got the Iowa.
Come on.
Yeah.
And he's going to
crazy.
And Liddell Betts, how about that for a parting gift as he goes out the door? Basically his last recruit very well could be this guy as he's off to the NFL. All right, Tom, we know you like betting, and I'm going to throw a wager out to you. There's going to be even money. All right. Across the board. It's a prop bet. I got 3 defensive linemen who finishes the year with more tackles for loss, not sacks, tackles for loss. Brian Allen, Yosei Epinesa, or Kenneth Merriweather. I think all those guys are going to play. Not sure how many snaps any of them are going to play, but they're going to be part of the rotation. Who do you like, Allen, Merriweather, or Epinesa?
I'm going to say Brian Allen, because I know he's going to be in there on those those special packages for third down,
Mm-hmm.
where he's going to be in there as like a deep tackle. So I'm going to go with Brian Allen. I've been driving the Brian Allen bandwagon for a couple of years. I think he's a super talented young guy, but Yosei has impressed people. I'll say that, and I'm interested in what Yosei does this year because I think he's going to help him at some point in the season. But that defensive end position is really deep and talented. I mean, Chima Chidike was really good in the spring too, and he's another defensive end. But he was hurt, Kids Day thing, but yeah, he's another really talented kid too.
Where's Jeremiah Pittman on his recovery coming back from that knee surgery? Is he anticipated by next Saturday being out there and can give him 25, 30 snaps if necessary?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to give him that much.
Okay.
I think he'll be back out there and then be in uniform. But I think they're going to take it pretty easy with him out of the gate because he was coming back from the knee surgery. So hopefully they can get him back out there because they like the Hubert kid that's the walk on that it's really stuck out. I mean, he's been very good, and Devin Kennedy has come along too at defensive tackle. His dad.
Good to have bodies.
Penn State, played an NFL guy, Jimmy Kennedy. So, I mean, he's a guy that he's got the frame. He looks the part, and he's coming along. So that's another guy to watch, too.
Get the yard work done tomorrow, Tom. You're out of Saturdays. This is it, my friend.
I know.
Tom, thank you.
I got to watch the Cyclones.
Hell
too.
yeah, right off the bat. No question about it. 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. You guys, the Hawks, will see them in week 2 with Jack Trice. Thanks, Tom. Talk to you next week. Appreciate it as always. Have a good week, guys. Tom. See ya.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com.
Thanks as always to Tom Kakert for joining us as we talk lots of Hawkeye and a lot of inside scoop there from Tom. We continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Well, we mentioned it, week 0, Iowa State. What are we looking for as we kick off the college football season tomorrow? That's next, Locked On Hawkeyes. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. I love that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege with the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So next week, we'll make it. It's game week. We'll get a big reveal with the depth chart that'll be released on Monday. Looking forward to that as we'll get the game notes. We'll have certainly a reaction to that happening for you right away and any surprises that come out of that. It won't be a traditional game week because we won't have a game to talk about, but I'm going to do a mailbag edition. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But secondly, if you have any questions, you can send them there. You can also hit me up on social media. At Trent Condon is where you can find me, or at Locked On Iowa on social media. That is the best place to get in contact with us with any questions you have for Iowa football and Iowa sports leading into the season. We know week 2, after the matchup against Albany for the Hawkeyes, it'll be the in-state matchup against Iowa State, and the Cyclones open up college football season with their matchup against Kansas State. Iowa State recently has played well in this series. They've won 4 out of 5 against the Wildcats. Couple of things to keep your eye on, though. That new wide receiver core a year ago. You go back to the loss for the Hawkeyes in Kinnick Stadium. You can really trace it back to the play of Jalen Noel and just how good he was in that game. And without him, I don't think they beat the Hawkeyes. So keeping an eye on that. Also, last year, Iowa State really struggled against the run. They returned one of the best defensive tackles in college football in Dominic Orange, but there are some question marks up front. They were really banged up, if you remember, last season at linebacker. Now, most of those guys are healthy. They're very deep at that spot, but how do they kind of figure out that rotation? Something else to keep your eye on. And there are some question marks in the defensive backfield. There's two really high-level players, Jontez Williams, their cornerback, and one of their safeties in Cooper. After that, a lot of questions back there. And maybe possibility we could see the Hawkeyes actually do some throwing against Iowa State. How fun would that be to see? College football is back. Can't wait for it. And we got you covered here on Locked On Hawkeyes, your team every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast. A big thank you to all the listeners and the viewers out there with us each and every day. You everydayers couldn't do it without your support. And a big thank you to all of you. That'll do it for today. We will be back with you on Monday. It'll be game week. We almost made it. College football back in a big time way. And we are Locked On Hawkeyes. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.